Untitled Chapter. Okay, everybody can hear us? Everybody can hear us. Sorry about that. We just had a heck of a time getting on. But anyways, going to call the meeting to order. Any conflict amongst council members here tonight? Seeing none. Before we adopt the published agenda, Rob's got an addition. Go ahead, Rob.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a number of items that I wish council to consider adding to the adopted agenda for the record. And all of these items were sent to council earlier. We have correspondence from a Edward Baldwin dated July 11th. We have correspondence from Bike Windsor Essex dated July 13th. We have petition signatures received from Anne-Marie Grant in opposition to the amendment. And then we received additional signatures with respect to the Gorski petition in support of electronic media signs. Also wish to add the addendum agenda that was posted to the public calendar and sent to council on Saturday. And then with respect to delegates, if council could add Mr. Adam Grant after Bernard Gorski, and the following delegates listed on the published agenda have indicated they no longer wish to be delegates. Kathy Langlois, Richard Kerneman, and Nettie Ridley, and Mike Pesh. And that's the extent of the additions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Rob. So I'll need a mover for the published agenda with the additions, please. Councillor Bjorkman and Councillor Bowman. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And we'll go right into presentation from our administration, please. Go ahead, Lori. I think, are you going to speak next? Go ahead.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. Good evening, everyone, members from the public as well. I'd like to share my screen, if permissible, to our clerk's division. Shall I just hit the share screen button?
Yes.
Okay. Can everyone see what the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, again, good evening. The reason that we're here tonight is to review the sign bylaw specific to County Road 50. Tonight is in fulfillment of the Municipal Act and the requirement to hold a public meeting. So to give you some background on the sign bylaw, the original bylaw was adopted by Town Council in 2015. And as you may know, it regulates the installation and maintenance of all permanent and temporary signage in the community, whether that is related to a business or home occupation or general product, activity, or even event advertising. Going back to January, Council did direct us, administration, to review the sign bylaw specific to County Road 50 as a result of an application that came forward to Council for decision on a site-specific amendment to the sign bylaw provisions. And that parcel, which we know as Crew Winery, is along County Road 50, which triggered that review. So we're here tonight specifically to review that sign bylaw specific to County Road 50. So the study area along County Road 50 extends from County Road 41, which is known as Meadows Road, to County Road 23, which is known as Arner Town Line. And so can you guys see my cursor, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, so our cursor.
I'm so sorry, Ms. Chadwick, just a point of order. I'm getting messages from people that are trying to watch us on YouTube, and they're saying we're not on YouTube right now. Are we on there?
I confirmed with our that yes, we are on YouTube.
Okay, thank you very much, Shelley. Ms. Brown, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so hopefully that works out for members of the public. Being that this is a public meeting, we'd like to have it accessible. So Sherry, if you could share with us if there are any concerns in that regard. So back to County Road 50. So this the study limit areas really are specific to County Road 50. We did not look at any sign bylaw provisions outside of that. It really helped us to narrow our focus on those provisions along County Road 50. So the character of County Road 50 is also important to share with you as council, and as a reminder to everyone. Although we've biked, we've cycled, we've driven, we've walked County Road 50, hopefully in our time here at the town of Essex. Just to share with you, the character of County Road 50 is characterized by a mix of residential, recreational, and farm operations. And most recently, in recent years, we've seen an introduction of what we refer to in development services as, and really the planning world, as agritourism activities. Those agritourism activities stem from the agricultural industry and can include, but not limited to, wineries, bed and breakfast facilities, camps, retreats, cottages, as well as what we've seen as well as a food processing plant. It's also important to note that the character of County Road 50 also includes a mix of zoning, but really predominantly agricultural with pockets of residential. So what we see in front of us here is just a snip of our zoning bylaw schedule. And what you see in light green is the agricultural zone. And what you see in yellow is our residential zone. So why is that important to share with you the zoning? It's because signage on County Road 50 that signage that is currently permitted in agricultural districts is directly as a result of, or directly linked to, the zoning. So if a sign is requested, that sign review is in accordance to the zoning. So with that said, there are two major components or two major types of signs that are permitted in agricultural districts along County Road 50, those being ground signs and temporary portable signs. These are the regulations, so maximum height of 2 meters for a ground sign in agricultural districts, which amounts to 6.5 feet. And currently that sign face area of 43 square feet. Other regulations, as we know, is that electronic components are not permitted, but non-electronic changeable letters are currently permitted as a part of a ground sign. As well, in agricultural districts, we do have provisions for special occasion and event temporary signage, which there are certain criteria that must be met and certain limitations on timing for those temporary signs. We'd like to share with you the rationale for these particular provisions. The rationale for that 2015 depiction of signage in agricultural districts is for County Road 50 was that it was a reflection of the existing signage that was already in place for non-residential establishments. We also acknowledged at the time the predominantly low-key rural character of the road and its importance as an active transportation corridor, definitely reduce speed limits, and definitely the wide spacing between those non-residential uses. And then finally, we also recognized the diverse land uses and balancing those diverse land uses along County Road 50. It's also important to share with you that those non-residential establishments, again, going back to agritourism facilities, that's what we refer to as non-residential, and that all existing signage at the time were ground signs, and no pole signs existed in 2015, nor were they encouraged at that time because they were not typical of a rural environment. Recognizing the two primary land uses, agricultural and residential, with the rising prominence of agritourism. So currently here in agricultural districts along County Road 50, we see the following. This depiction of viewpoints sign is a ground sign. Now, a business identification sign is what is permitted and it could be located on a building wall or could also be located freestanding as depicted in the image. This is what we refer to as non-electronic changeable letter signage, and that is also currently permitted as a part of a sign on a wall or a sign on the ground. And this here is what we refer to as a temporary special occasion portable sign is currently permitted. And then also it's important to note with the temporary sign permit. This is types, so this depiction here is a signage that is currently not permitted in agricultural districts. For council's reference, we've also shown some images as well. So this here is a pole sign, and as in examples of above, a freestanding sign differs from that ground sign. It's currently not permitted in agricultural districts, nor on County Road 50 in those agricultural or residential districts. Here you'll also see an example of an electronic media sign, and whether that is a part of a pole sign or whether that is a part of a ground sign, those are also currently not permitted. So what we've seen recently, changes to the business environment along County Road 50, particularly in relation to those agritourism related activities, has resulted in requests to amend the current sign regulations to do two things. The first is to permit pole signs, again, those that are higher than ground signs, and to allow for electronic media identification and advertising signs. So taking us back to the month of June and some work that we've done here administration, we've had a very collaborative effort here between development services. We've had a collaborative effort within our department between our divisions, planning, ECDEV, as well as building. We've also cross-collaborated with our communications division, our GIS division as well. And our administrative staff has been quite integral in helping us get this word out. So we prepared an information package, and we also worked on an online survey, and we provided notice. In accordance to the Municipal Act, we were only required to provide notice in the newspaper. We went above and beyond that. So we provided notice on the town's website through several social media outlets and social media releases. We've also printed in Essex Free Press and in the Harrow News. We've emailed stakeholders within the Harrow and Colchester South Chamber of Commerce, as well as Explore the Shore. And finally, most importantly, we did a direct mail out to over 300 property owners fronting County Road 50. Seeing as they were specific to the study area, we did those direct mail outs to actually 330 properties. This here is a clip of the survey that was mailed out and was also available through a web form on our website. The review period was approximately 2 weeks, and we had the availability not only through our web form to complete that online survey online, but rather you were able to scan and email the survey. You could have also mailed a hard copy of the survey, and finally, you could have also provided your input via telephone. So I'd like to get into some statistics for you as council to be able to get an idea as to the result of our survey. And so those questions I will share with you verbally and be able to depict for you visually as I share with you what the questions were. So the first question of our survey, let me give you a quick stat on the survey. A total of 147 responses to the survey were received in combination of not only the online survey, but also those that were mailed in, those that were emailed in, and those that were phoned over or taken over the phone rather. So of the 147, the pies is what you're seeing, the data out of the 147 that submitted and responded to our town survey. So the first question is related to the demographics. Who are you? We asked, are you a stakeholder? Are you a business owner or resident? For clarification, the unknown was really just someone that chose not to answer, or several individuals that chose not to answer. The majority at 82% were residents. Our next question is, where do you reside within the town of Essex? So a majority here, so of this percent, or of this pie chart, the majority were located within the town of Essex. This percentage in the blue and in the orange are those individuals that responded to the survey that reside on County Road 50, either east or west. So we took that data, and to quantify that for you, of the 330 that responded directly to the town's survey, approximately 50 of those individuals made up the blue and orange. So those 50 individuals along County Road 50 specifically responded to our survey. So one of the biggest questions that we posed was, how would you describe the contribution of existing signage to the appearance of the community? We received several comments, and I'm very grateful that we were able to share the data to you over the weekend, and of course, be able to share more than just these comments here where I'm encircling, but rather to be able to share with you, if you wanted to flip through those comments, you could see for yourself that there was quite a bit of comments that were on the line of that the existing signage on County Road 50 was very positive in nature or very neutral in nature. The appealing and charming, maintaining that rural character, and that folks really felt, the majority of the folks really felt that the existing signage was very tasteful and unobtrusive. Our next very important question to the survey is related to whether you think that the signage used by various non-residential uses along County Road 50 could be improved. So the majority of those folks, so we identified here that better permanent signage to eliminate temporary signs and banners was a common theme, as well was better maintenance and refreshing of existing signage. This pie chart is incorrect, and I apologize for that. Can you guys still see my screen? If I'd like to pull up, or I can certainly send it to you after this meeting, but unfortunately that pie chart does not match the results of that question. So let me just go back. This pie chart, unfortunately, is not in response to the question. So I will just read the data for you. So the question again, let's go back to, do you think that the signage used by various non-residential uses along County Road 50 could be improved? The data out of the 147 responses, 42% it's not matching up. I'm going to take a moment after this. I'm just going to move on to the next question and be able to share this with you while someone else is speaking and get that information to you so we don't delay any further. So let's go. I will go back to slide 15 in due course. Okay. Survey results for electronic media signs. So this question, would you be in favor of an electronic media sign component as a part of a business identification or a business advertising sign along County Road 50? Of those respondents, 77% indicated no. That most of those folks that responded to this question were felt that electronic media signs were contrary to the rural character of the community along County Road 50, that it would be not in compliance with the night sky compliance requirements, that there was concerns with animation distraction, and that there were concerns with brightness, size, and hour operation. The question pertaining to pole signs. in a majority of people as well. So would you be in favor of permitting pole signs for business identification or business advertising sign along County Road 50? Again, individuals responded in the majority of the answer being no, contrary to the rural character and concerns with the height. The next question on portable signs. Would you be in favor of permitting portable temporary signs such as A-frame to identify a business, a product, or an event on the same property with certain rules, and those rules being that 30-day limit? And the answer was also I apologize again. This was an oversight. I apologize. This data again does not match the data for portable signs. So what I will do is also go back to slide 18 so that if we can take note, slide 15 and slide 18, I will have to provide council with that data. The data in front of me, however, shows, not in front of you, but unfortunately in front of me, shows 87% of the respondents were in support of portable signs. However, only for special events along County Road 50, not an alternative to permanent signage, and implementing a time limit by the event or depending on the event and the duration. Most common themes and suggestions. So in conclusion, to council, what was the most common theme? We went through the data, we went through the comments, we went through and did really a comb through comment by comment. And what we heard over and over again was a resounding maintain the rural character of County Road 50. However, there were some comments of professionally designed signs that many comments were related to, can we please the customer? Can we please residents and properties along County Road 50 and still have that professionally designed look? And then we also heard, can we accommodate business needs? Can we be more flexible? We possibly could. However, we did hear a resounding without pole signs, without electronic media components as a part of the survey. And then finally, we did hear often that, although it was not a question posed specifically, but we did hear that it would be something to consider a standardized sign designed specific to County Road 50, whether in terms of a logo or in terms of a theme or in terms of even dimensions or vision. Overall, there was a common theme and suggestion to keep it standardized along County Road 50. As of the writing of this report, we did receive other correspondence, and that other correspondence we received at the time of this report was from Crew. We did also receive letters from Ms. Grant, Ms. Langlois, and Mr. Herneman, and those letters have been included in the public record in the agenda and are available as well for review for council and the public. So what are our next steps? So tonight, as you are aware, and Mr. Auger will walk us through, there will be some other delegates. So this is not the end of the meeting, but rather just really the end of administration's presentation. Following administration's presentation, there will be the delegates, but rather following tonight, we will be preparing a report to council. So that is something that is pending, and that final report and draft sign bylaw amendments, if any are recommended, will be presented at the next council meeting on August 4th for council's decision making. I'd like to share with you that there is no appeal period for any changes to that sign bylaw because it is under the Municipal Act. So this is not a Planning Act matter. It is under the Municipal Act. And so once that bylaw is passed and read for a first, second, and third time, that bylaw is considered implemented and adopted by council with no appeal. However, applicants may proceed as they have always been able to apply for a site-specific sign bylaw amendment, whether it was today or whether it was back in January or whether it is in the future. Applicants can certainly come forward to council for that decision. It is not a decision that's made at the administration level. If there is a proposed amendment to that bylaw, it must be directed to council for decision making. and I'm happy to take any questions and hear your comments. I also have here our resident senior planning advisor, Jeff Watson, is here as well. Mr. Watson was very integral in helping council adopt the 2015 sign bylaw. So Mr. Watson is here to assist in any of those questions that you may have. We also have our manager of planning services, Rita Jabour. Rita also brings with her a wealth of knowledge on the topic. So if you have any questions directed to administration, either on the survey or either on the sign bylaw itself, we'd be happy to help.
Thank you, Lori, for the presentation. I'm going to open it up for questions from council. Give us a second here. Okay, go ahead. Councillor Guerin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Lori, for that information. If you can double back on those 2 slides, that'd be great. Just a question on the existing, what's allowed right now for an existing ground site in terms of the changeable message area. Is it not 25% of the sign face, or is it 25% of the maximum sign face allowed?
I'm going to pass this one to Mr. Watson. He's indicated it's 70%, but I'd like Mr. Watson to be able to respond if that's okay with you, Councillor Guerin.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, let's try again.
No, he was starting to talk. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. If you look at real situations where farmers have produce for sale, for example, they like to display the items for sale on the sign. So that in terms of the amount of advertising space that's allowed on a sign, it's very generous for rural areas for that reason. However, it's also stated, of course, as Larry said, that's for fixed copy signage. In other words, individual letters can be replaced, individual words can be replaced manually, and they can use that to advertise the actual products they have for sale.
Thank you. Anybody else with a question? Deputy Mayor Malash, go ahead.
Just a general comment. Thanks to all who put the survey together, and thanks for presenting the survey, Lori. It highlights some very interesting information. I didn't think it would be skewed that far to people not tolerating that particular kind of sign, but the public has really spoken out and showed us what they do or do not like, and the survey was worded very well to get that input. So again, highlights exactly what I believe that, the action that we need to take. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Verbeek, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I thought the survey was very well worded, and it seemed to reiterate and support all the efforts that were taken in 2015 to write the original bylaw. My question is about so this particular sign that's driven this review of our bylaw. Have you had other requests besides the one for that sign at Crew for signs of that height and with that bright light prior to or since? Are there other businesses that want to have requested this kind of sign, or Ms. Chadwick, I guess?
Go ahead, Laurie. Can you answer that? Laurie, you there?
Yep, sorry. Okay, so along County Road 50, we have not had any applications come forward for amendment site-specific to permit a pole sign or to permit a media component.
Thank you. Anybody else from council? I do have a question, Laurie, and you and I discussed this afternoon when I was here. My question is this: what are we going to do in Colchester once we rezone it commercial? Are we going to have to look at the sign bylaw again at that point?
No, Mr. Mayor, thank you for that question. Again, going to one of my slides earlier, the sign provisions in our sign bylaw are specific to a zone anyways. So any commercial zone in Colchester's center would have its specific sign provisions and certain allowable signage. So it's just in this instance where we saw sign regulations for agricultural districts that triggered this review, because a winery may kind of stand on that line or that fence of business and agriculture, and this agritourism, say, land use. It really triggered our review. But in Colchester, the zone, whatever the land is zoned, the sign provisions are in accordance to that zoning.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Thank you. Anybody else from council? Okay, first of all, before we go into, Councillor Vandendal, go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I find it curious, but the language of the study and the questionnaire, what we've heard is that there's electronic, and then there's what we have now, as though it's black and white and there's nothing in between. And, you know, I think some of the businesses that are seeking changes would be quite happy with something in between. It doesn't have to be electronic or just what we have. I just think that that's kind of an unfair black and white, that there are other options open to us. Compromises.
Thank you, Councillor. Lori, did you have something? Okay, go ahead, Lori.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, Mr. Vanderdoel, and to everyone, really. So we are here to hear from the public, and really that is our duty tonight, is to hear from the public. We have quite a bit of correspondence and of course the data from the survey. Ultimately, the decision, there are options for the decision at the end of the day, and that decision can be one of three things. For example, we could implement changes, and those changes could be flexible. We could flex with, you know, permitting some sort of, say, height restriction, or increasing a height by certain number of meters. Or perhaps we hear back, and is there some sort of medium or happy medium or middle ground on some sort of electronic component, perhaps by face area, or perhaps by, what is it called? The light illumination, rather. And so there is room for council to be flexible in making those amendments, or recommending those amendments. And there also is an option for council to stay status quo and not put forth any recommendations for amendments at this time. And then thirdly, you can leave it also up to administration to come forward with several options for decision-making at the August 4th meeting, after, of course, hearing tonight, receiving the comments and hearing the deliberations as well tonight. So again, those options are status quo, make amendments with certain provisions yourselves and direct us to come back with those, say, recommendations. And then thirdly, allow us as administration to make those recommendations for your decision August 4th.
Thank you, Lori. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Lori, for the presentation. I'm going to have to get a mover to accept the presentation, please, before we, Councillor Bowman and Councillor Bjorkman. All in favor? It's carried. And now we'll move right into public presentations. Just to let the public know, we have quite a few that's on here. We allow 5 minutes. If you can keep it close to 5 minutes, we would really appreciate it. Thank you. So I guess the first one, Bernard Gorski. Bernard, are you on?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Bernard.
Okay. Well, first of all, I support a bylaw change in our area. You know, and first of all, I read the strategic plan that all the councilors and the mayor and all the management of the town has endorsed. And throughout the plan, it states that we would be progressive, resilient, financially and economically viable. It wants to promote vibrant growth, emphasizes the agricultural economy, review and build the community improvement plans, the CIP plans, to develop small businesses, to develop comprehensive tourism strategy, to develop agri and eco tourism offers, and specifically it states to develop and implement a wayfinding signage strategy. Now, that means I take that as the change will be put into place. It also wants to improve the experiences of individuals, citizens, customers, and visitors to the area. It wants, and you also endorse the utilization of digital and web-based technology. I went out of my way to get as many people as I could to sign a petition that supports the change, a pole sign. On my petition, I said up to 5 meters in height with a digital media component and restricted to daylight hours. So there's no nighttime pollution of lights or disturbing neighbors and stuff like this. And I thought that was extremely reasonable. I don't want to disturb anybody with, after dark. I mean, that's not necessary or desired. The reason that there are so many signatures from out of the town of Essex is because your strategic plan mentions more than once that you would consider the opinion of stakeholders, visitors, tourists, and customers that we have to put up with, and we have to endorse and hope that they come back and possibly even stay and invest. The wineries are a major attraction in the area, although there's not too many, but I know that all the extra customers that come in to support your small businesses like fruit stands, cycle rental places, restaurants, shops, B&Bs, they all depend on the traffic that the wineries help provide into the area. So I think that the wineries are quite an important advancement for the tourism. And we want to continue to draw more people to the area, and effective signs are going to help us do this. Like any business, we have to be sustainable and competitive. So, and based on the competitive nature of this, the wineries in the other 2 wine areas, the Niagara region, which is 4 townships, and the Prince Edward County area, all allow signs up to 7 meters in height and have a digital media or electronic components for them. And so it's up to the wineries to choose, or businesses to choose. It's not just restricted to wineries. It's all businesses have to choose whether or not they want to do this or not. I found a couple of examples when I was talking with one of the counselors. They said to show us some samples. So I had submitted some samples of that in the area. Now, as a winery, we need to have a competitive advantage with the other wineries across the province of Ontario. And since they all have these privileges and can attract tourists and visitors and customers, we should have that same opportunity. It would be counterproductive and against all of the things that you state in your strategic plan. We want to have a thriving business, and I think the wineries, the wineries in our area have poured multi-millions of dollars into the area to support the tourism, to bring customers and tourists and actually permanent residents to our area as well, which is all part of the way it should be. And in order to keep them there, we have to have and endorse new technology and to promote growth in the area and attract more people. And we can't do that with these changeable letter signs. As things change today, you can't be running up and down with a stack of letters that the wind blows all over the place. It has to be a little bit nicer than that. and has to look a little bit more professional. So we have to have some forward thinking, because the strategic plan of 2019 to 2022 tells us we're thinking into the future. And this means that we have to make a few changes. I believe that this bylaw, 1350, the sign bylaw, should be changed to reflect new business. It should be allowed to use new technology. It should have something that looks beautiful and promotes business and sustains growth and keep it beautiful in our area. You know, like I totally agree with keeping it very good looking and professional. And I think that you should have restrictions if there are changes, which I hope there are. I hope the restrictions state that, you know, the signs have to be professional looking and reasonable. And my only suggestion in that is that, you know, we keep it signed or keep them operating only during daylight hours, so you don't have something that is disruptive through the county.
Thank you, Bernard. We're going to restrict.
Okay, a couple more sentences if I could.
Okay, go ahead.
Without change, there will be a negative effect on what the town is trying to do by promoting business and growing. New signs are good for the area and will help you reach your goals. I'm asking you to follow your strategic plan and support growth and bring new people and businesses to our area, and supporting the technology allowing the technology that's available to us so we can achieve our goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernard. Our next person to speak is Adam Grant. Are you there, Adam?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to Mr. Mayor and Council for this venue to address this issue. The proposed changes to sign bylaw 1350 are a simple non-starter for Anne Marie and I. These changes to the bylaw, that I would remind all is only 5 years old, will profoundly impact the region and not for the betterment of the community. The proposed changes as being presented to promote business. Nothing can be further from the truth. First, we need a little background information. The proposed amendments are identical to the non-compliance issues with Crew's sign at 108 County Road 50 East that was installed with disregard and non-compliance to bylaw 1350. If I may use an analogy, a permit is a license, a bylaw is a rule of operation. Basically what happened here is Crew got caught speeding without a proper license, and here we are now looking at changing the speed limit with disregarding the lack of license. We need to be ever mindful that this amendment process is on the taxpayer's dime and is not cheap. Such amendments signal to the public that bylaw compliance is negotiable, undermine the authority of bylaw enforcement, reducing compliance, and increase owner-operator applications for site-specific amendments. Let's not forget the great administrative expense for surveys, consultations, and meetings for such administrative actions. As we live directly across the street from Crew, we can attest to that the sign during operation is very bright and will no doubt create a hazard to pedestrians and cyclists on a road that has bicycle lanes on both sides. My belief is gained from experience from walking and running on these roads. Vehicles regularly stray into the bike lanes. The sign will be a great source of driver distraction and light trespass. When it was initially operated, it illuminated the front of our house and a great swath of CR 50. The proponents will say that it's not an issue that can be turned down and off at night. This is questionable. Only recently on the nights of the 7th and 8th of July, the sign was on. Even with a plastic cover over it, it could still be visibly read. This casts doubt on the ability of Crew to control their sign. Furthermore, these issues will resurface wherever each sign is installed. Is council ready to take ownership of any future accidents that result of their endorsement of such amendments? The area is zoned agricultural and residential and not commercial, given that the majority who moved to this area did so to get away from urban areas. Council needs to be mindful that these residents have invested heavily in their properties. The business uber alles narrative is at odds with rural residents. Is it fair to have such an inconvenience imposed on the residents? I ask you that again. Is it fair to have such an inconvenience imposed on the residents? Is the town prepared to compensate owners for the devaluation of their properties that will no doubt result from such changes? If those in favor of the sign, I ask you this: would you be agreeable to having such a sign across the street from your house? Crew feels the sign will promote the region. If this was true, these signs would be common in the winery industry. However, this is not the case. The signs utilized in areas like Niagara-on-the-Lake, Okanagan, Napa Valley are ground signs. If you doubt me, take a trip on Google Maps. Use the street view function. Even in Italy and France, the street signs are the standard for wineries. Unobtrusive signs are the norm, and yet these regions thrive. These regions recognize that the beauty of the natural landscape that attracts the business, not their sign. In fact, they recognize it in the preamble to the Napa County sign bylaw. It is the intent of these regulations to promote an important aspect of the economic base of the county by preventing the destruction of the natural beauty and the environment of the county, which is instrumental in attracting non-residents who come to visit, trade, and vacation, to safeguard and enhance property values, to protect public and private investment in buildings and open space, and to protect the public health and safety and general welfare. I don't think we should underestimate the changes such an amendment will make to the community. The group who are pushing this are the ones who will not have to deal with the light pollution, lowered property values, and reduced quality of life. To take such a course, given the motive force behind the proposed changes, would be highly irrational, given that the pervasive industry standards are very much in line with 1350. With that, I would like to thank you all for your time and letting me speak.
Thank you, Adam. Next is Anne Marie. Are you going to speak tonight?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. County Road 50 in Essex has a long history in our community. Historically, it was primarily used as a farming road connecting local farms, many of which were awarded these lands from King George III when they took up arms against the Americans after the War of 1812. Over the years, County Road 50 grew from a purely agricultural to a beautiful blend of agricultural and residential. As such, many of our local farmers began setting up roadside stands, drawing people from across the county to our region to purchase local homegrown fruits and vegetables, a practice that still thrives today. Many B&B and wineries along County Road 50 have embraced this rural charm and marketed themselves as such, taking great pride in the rural roots. In fact, Explore the Shore has often promoted themselves as Explore the Shore, discover historic County Road 50. And Shelley, may I ask that we turn on the PowerPoint? Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. So we start our tour on Niagara-on-the-Lake region. Here you'll see some pictures of winery signage. And then you could just continue to go through if it's not going to be automatic. As Adam mentioned, County Road 50 is zoned agricultural and residential. We are not zoned commercial. And an introduction of a digital media on a pole sign only has negative ramifications for residents, such as degradation of historic character of County Road 50, disruption of quality of life for neighbors, distracted driving, and introduction of light pollution and devaluation of the property. Personally, Adam and I are not saying no to agricultural tourism in the community, but we would like to be strategic about how we present ourselves. And Shelley, when you get to Okanagan, if you could just hold off on just one moment. Vermont, Maine, Alaska, and Hawaii have thriving tourism industries, and they also have some of the strictest sign regulations in North America. With agricultural tourism, we are trying to sell the experience of a natural beauty and an environment that we so treasure out here in the county. I would like to remind council that all the residents have spoken, with 77% of 147 surveys voting no to electronic signs and 72 saying no to pole signs. Clearly, residents do not want electronic media and pole signs in our community. In addition to this survey, we had a petition come through today with 130 signatures, all who are opposed to digital media and pole signs. And you'll note that on that petition that was sent, I would say all but maybe 15 to 20 were residents of the town of Essex. So now we're going to go into Okanagan. Thank you, Shelley. You can continue on, and we'll go right up to Napa Valley and Tuscany. And you'll see some more signs here. To reiterate, Napa Valley only allows signage for identification purposes. No advertising, no pole signs are permitted. Niagara on the Lake also does not allow for pole signs. And this is confirmed by the email that Adam has sent to all councillors. You can see from these photos that the premier wine regions have embraced this organic, natural look and feel in their signage. Adam invited you earlier, and I invite you as well to take some time and have a virtual tour of these regions on Google Maps and experience how other prosperous regions have flourished. Okay, please continue, Shelley. The next few slides are of Napa Valley. So again, it's that organic feel of the winery. And there, as Adam mentioned, it's just for identification purposes. You can see right here is Francis Ford Coppola's. And that's right off the interstate. So it would be a prime target for one of those signs, but they don't even allow that. It's just for identification purposes. And after this, you'll see the Tuscany region. So you can continue on. So here in Tuscany, oh, I'm sorry, actually, can you back up just a moment, Shelley? For some reason, I had a circle around the signs here at some of the Italian wineries, but for some reason it's not coming through on it. You can see at the building at the end of the roadway, there's a little white sign sticking out of the building for that one. And then, oh no, not even that one, that's a car. But it's actually right on the building, Shelley.
If you could speed it up a little bit, you got about 30 seconds left.
Oh, okay, for sure. I'm almost done. Now you'll see the first sign on the right. That's the sign of identification of this property. And then you can go on. Here on the bottom left is the sign. And I believe we have one more example. So people visit our county to escape urban blight. Let's deliver a natural organic experience and keep them coming back for more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. The next is Kevin. Are you on, Kevin? Kevin Kuhn. No?
I do have someone that has phoned in that hasn't identified themselves by name. So I'm not sure.
It's got to be Kevin. It's got to be Kevin Kuhn. We're not going to take another delegation. It's got to be Kevin Kuhn. He's the one that's on the agenda.
Hello, yes.
Hello, Kevin? Well, we'll move in, okay, to Jim. Jim Heaton, are you there, Jim? Jim and Patricia Heaton, are you there? See who it is.
Hello, yes.
Jim? It says Heaton's? No. Kevin Kuhn? No. Let's go to Joe Lucas. Then. Go to Joe Lucas.
There, you got me now?
Yeah.
Joe, is that
Good,
you?
thank you. Thank you.
Go ahead, Joe.
Loud and clear, this is good. Firstly, thank you guys for having this meeting. It's been so far very, very well done. I appreciate that. Now, you know, my first impulse when preparing for this meeting was to put forward a request the County Road 50 be widened. Oh, not 4 lanes, but perhaps only 3 with a suicide lane down the center. Now that should surely be good for business traffic. My second was to ask that pedestrians and slow drivers be discouraged. And then, no. And then thirdly, that stop signs and or flashing traffic lights be erected at various points. But then I realized that like the present bylaw, number 50 is not broken. So why the hell try to fix it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, current bylaw 1350 is plenty good and needs strict application. That has been the problem. I have driven the entire length of number 50 that is in question, and there are some grandfathered signs, but overall, most signs do fit with 1350. For instance, Viewpoint, which does exceedingly well in business, is an example, and it is very, very close to Crew. Also very close is the bread and breakfast across the street from Viewpoint. It's called the Magnolia. And this B&B has a wonderful sign which complements the historic nature of the area. It is neither gaudy in size nor in presentation. It is country-ish and does not detract in any way from this important historical road, which has been used for 200 or so years and is now a drawing card for tourists, runners, walkers, bicyclists, history-interested locals, and just plain old meanderers like me. And how about the farms and families and houses along the route? Many of which are owned, operated, occupied by the progeny of original settlers who are proudly, deservedly members of heirs. And then there are the cemeteries, large and small, which are still being discovered. They too are places of pride for descendants, but surely of interest to tourists as well. You know, what this whole meeting is about, what it comes down to, is not signage itself, but about the suitability of said signage for the community, the surroundings, the people living therein. The heart of wonderful number 50, with its beauty, charm, quaintness, that already draws visitors and commerce. You know, if it ain't broke, please don't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. I'm going to go back, and we had 2 that never spoke. Kevin Kuhn. Are you there? No. Okay. Jim Heaton, are you there? Jim? No. Thank you for the delegations. Yeah, so I need a motion to receive the delegations, please. Councillor Bowman and Councillor Vandal. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, delegates. It was good to hear from you and your views too. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if council could also receive all correspondence and petitions, including those items added.
Yes, we got to receive the correspondence. Please, I need a mover to Councillor Guerin and Councillor Bjorkman. Any questions at all? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. and I need a motion to adjourn. Counselor Bondi and Counselor Guerin. Thank you all in favor?
Mr. Mayor, if any counselors have any more, can we provide those?
Pardon
Please.
me?
If any counselors have any more comments, can we provide those, please?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Do you have some?
Yes, yes, please. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank our administration. I believe they did a very thorough job of getting public feedback, and truly impressed with the amount of time and effort they put into this. Because as you know, this is one of the contentious issues going on in our municipality right now. One of the things that after all the discussions tonight, I do want to keep in our radar is the amount of money we've spent on our bike pass, right? Like, we have really tried to encourage cycle tourism. So that's something that I made note of. Crew Winery is an absolutely beautiful, stunning winery. When we were there for the ribbon cutting, it like blew my socks off. Looking out of the back, like I'm truly impressed with the winery, and I think it really does a really good job of selling itself. So I just want to thank everybody, and there's a lot of comments to read. Both sides have really good arguments, so there's a lot of comments to read. I look forward to thoroughly reading them over the next few weeks and continuing to get public feedback and listening to our residents and all of our delegations tonight. I just want to thank everybody for a really good job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Bjorkman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo what Councillor Bondi says about putting the survey together, getting the data, providing it to us. Tremendous job of getting that all set. Now, is there something from this meeting to Director Chadwick that they're looking for from council leading into our next meeting?
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Bjorkman. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mayor Snively, and to the residents. Is there something that we're looking for? We are looking for direction, either of those three options. So the first option to either direct us as administration with certain amendments yourselves, if you collectively can make those decisions tonight. Option number 2, status quo, and we don't come forward with any amendments at all. Or option number 3 is that we propose amendments or recommendations for council's consideration based on the input we've received to date, based on any further input we receive, and we prepare those specific recommendations for council's decision-making at August 4th. So those are the 3, and we hope to receive some direction from you.
Thank you, Laurie. Councillor Bowman, did you have something?
I think another counselor was getting ready to make a motion, so I'll pass to him. Steve, is that you?
Thank you, Councillor. Through your worship. No, I wasn't getting ready to make a motion, but I just did want to say, like, I thought that is where administration wanted us to go. We've received a lot of information. We have a lot of things to digest. I don't know if somebody wants to make a motion about administration bringing us recommendations back and then us having the ability to have a good discussion about that at a later moment. That's probably the best directive. I did want to just remind all of us, and even for our residents, that we need to make sure that when we're talking about this, we're talking about a bylaw for all of County Road 50. This was generated by a particular proponent looking to make a change, but that's not what this conversation and how we move forward needs to be about. This just needs to be about the entire road, the sign bylaw. We're not looking to do a one-off on this. This is going to be the bylaw for the whole road. So let's make sure that we keep our discussion regarding the entire area and not a site-specific area. That would come later if we needed to. So I'll leave it at that for now and see what people want to do.
Thank you, Councillor. I agree 100% with what you're saying. I don't think we should be making a decision tonight or direction tonight. I think that should come up at the next meeting. There's a lot, you're 100% right. There's a lot to digest here. I want to go through all the comments again, all the input that the residents sent in and digest it ourselves. And we got to make sure we make the right decision here for the residents and for the businesses. Councillor Vandendolen, you had something? Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And also thanks to staff for all this work. I agree with the mayor and with Councillor Bjorkman. This is too important. It's not a one-shot deal. It's not a one-sign decision. I wouldn't mind if we took 3 or 4 kicks at this. You know, tonight we've got piece 1. Let's do a couple more pieces. We need a little bit of back and forth and discussion about this. I think that would be very healthy rather than trying to decide it tonight. Maybe administration could start roughing out some stuff. I know I've got an idea or two I'd like to put out there, but let's just let this settle before we move to the next stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Bjorkman. No, you're good. Deputy Mayor Malash, you haven't spoke yet. Go ahead.
Thanks through your worship to Ms. Chadwick. Councillor Bjorkman was talking about a sign bylaw that would cover the entire stretch of County Road 50 in the town of Essex. Would this be for all residential, agricultural, commercial areas? And the reason why I'm asking is because we are looking at changing the village of Colchester from Erie to Dunn to be a commercial area. And what I'm wondering is, would this sign bylaw reflect on that commercial area as well, or would we have something different, or would they be able to come to council for some kind of variance because they're a commercial area?
Go ahead, Laurie.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Malash. And we would certainly propose that if that's the flavor of council, we would propose that it be specific to County Road 50, that these provisions would be really by district or by area, and that could be instead of by zone or by zoning district or by land, the zoning in accordance to the zoning bylaw, but rather the provisions could be specific to a location. I do have Mr. Watson here who had drafted the 2015 bylaw based on zoning. And so I'd love to have Mr. Watson, if I could, add on to that response and be able to share that site, or not really site specific, but the specific provisions that we could build in. Jeff?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jeff. Did you want to add anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, council has directed us to do a master plan for Colchester to update the plan that was done in 2010. So we can tailor signage to the specific characteristics of Colchester that council wants to see in the new master plan. That's the first thing. As far as what to do with lands outside of Colchester along County Road 50, there are a number of issues. I mean, this whole question of electronic media signs, for example, it can be based on the size of the sign, its proportion relative to the total sign, with the luminosity that it generates, with hours of operation, as Mr. Gorski said. There are a lot of issues that could be addressed as part of a consideration of electronic media sign, or of course, no consideration at all based on the characteristics of this area and other wine regions that were noted in the previous presentation. So, there are a lot of things that council has to consider both inside and outside of Colchester. But I think correctly, though, we should be looking at County Road 50 as a unique situation, both in Colchester and outside. And as Laurie says, based it on the regional characteristics of the area rather than just the land use zoning type of thing.
Thank you, Jeff. Councillor Bondi, I guess you haven't spoke yet. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for letting me speak again, but I did already speak. But right now, tonight, administration is looking for feedback, and Councillor Vanderdolen says he has some ideas on what that feedback is. So tonight is when you're supposed to share that feedback, so administration gets that feedback and writes the report. How else can we do it in a transparent manner? We send it by email. So I think it has to be tonight that we give administration feedback. I also don't want to keep kicking this can around. Respectfully, there's other cans we need to kick. Infill development is another thing. Affordable housing policies are another thing. We have kicked this can around. We need to make a decision. For example, I'll throw out there some feedback from the surveys. In the surveys, people, 72% overwhelmingly said we need to eliminate temporary signs and banners. So I think that's something that we should put on our radar. Or at least if people have temporary signs, they have to have a permit. We have to have bylaws and we have to then enforce them. So that's one thing that stood out to me, other than the pole signs and the electric media signs. You know, I'm not hearing really what the rest of council is saying, and it's supposed to be a public meeting for feedback. But if we're representing the residents and you listen to what the residents down there are saying, and if we vote accordingly to what the residents are saying, you know, by all of the work that our town staff did, our residents are saying no to electric media signs. They're saying no to pole signs. So, you know, as of right now, the virtual tour that we had through the other counties makes me want to go there. Like, it makes me want to go there and drink their wine. So I'm not convinced that that the public will be happy if we allow County Road 50 to have electric media signs. That's just my opinion. But I am very adamant that if we as councillors have opinions, tonight is the night, because I really don't want to kick this can around. We've been kicking it around since 2015. Thank you.
Councillor Guerin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, if we're going to kick around ideas tonight, then, and we're speaking of the entire County Road 50, 2015, the town administration council of the day did their homework, talked to residents. We went through this already just 5 years ago. It looks like there's no appetite this time around. We're taking another look at it. That's fine. In those 5 years, other than Mr. Gorski, no one else has approached us to have a need for the electronic message sign. So I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel here with respect to the entire bylaw to suit one business. So I think earlier in the day, there was some talk about wayfinding signage. I think that was kind of what I was looking for, some additions or amendments to our bylaw, just to include some wayfinding signage to help out-of-town residents and people coming to that area find the various wineries and other things to do in that area. But I would be, I'm still opposed. I mean, I'm hearing what Councillor Bonnie is saying with respect to the residents, and it's not 50-50. It's high majority do not want it. So I think we hit it on the head in 2015, and I think it stays the same as it is. That's my opinion on it right now.
Thank you. Councillor Verbeek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been spending a lot of time reading and rereading this stuff prior to the meeting, and I do have to agree with the last two councillors that, you know, we've exhausted a lot of time on this, and including in 2015 when staff hours and money and the community were involved in drafting that not so old bylaw. And then we have this survey, and it was very clear. If you went through that survey and you read the comments over and over, there were the people that had strong opinions about it were the people that were saying, like, no illuminated signs, and the height restrictions needed to be you know, kept to where they are or similar. Also, there was a lot of work put into two public surveys or petitions, and if you look at them, the one at the winery has very few residents from within our municipality who are the people we are supposed to be listening to, and the one opposed was just you know, I think there was 104, almost 150, you know, individuals that live within our residents trying another method to speak out to us. So I think I mean, they got, again, like Councillor Guerin said, they got it right in 2015. So maybe we do need to, you know, include the temporary signs, have a little more, policing or, to keep them updated and tidy. But I don't see that anybody other than, I asked the question earlier and Mrs. Chadwick answered. There has not been in the past or since this has begun, any other business or along that stretch that has requested this type of change to our sign bylaw. So that's where I'm with this today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Nolan, you had something to add. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Must have been more than an hour ago that I started to voice my opinions about this, and Ms. Chadwick told me that tonight is only to receive the presentations from the public. So I'm quite prepared to go along with whatever the rule is. But if tonight's my chance to say something, then I guess I better go with it now. It's not true that we've been kicking it around since 2015. That's misdirection. A previous council made a decision, passed a law, and almost 5 years later, this council has discovered that it's not working out so well, that there's a large number of people who think it should be changed and updated. Like, I remind you that Mr. Gorski has a petition of 160 people who agree with his sign, who agree that he should have more signage than our antiquated and out-of-date law permits him. This isn't again, this is not a black and white between cute little nice signs and blazing electronic signs. We keep saying pole and electronic as though, it's like black and white. We can have signs that are a little bit taller. I'm proposing, what I would like to see is that we allow these commercial entities, and don't forget, we're taxing these people at commercial rates, big fat commercial rates. We can't pretend this is just some sort of historic agri-use. It's not anymore. We should give them a little bit more chance to promote their businesses and to show the cycling public what they've got, and the driving public who are going a little faster and need more time than you can see on a little weenie sign. They need more information than that. I think what we have is behind the times. Saying you have to have static signs, I think is like saying they got to use hammers and chisels to put up their signs. It's ridiculous. And the same with those movable letters. That's from a previous century, for Pete's sake. Let's update ourselves. And as for the uniform sign, the uniform sign size for everyone, that would be really ugly and boring. That's one size fits all. That's like Stalinist. That would look horrible. You need different signs to create interest, to make things look interesting and fun. That's what we want along this route: interest and fun. People to like going there. And if it's all just little robot signs, all the same, that's not going to look like fun, and it won't be fun. So I would like administration to find a way that we can upgrade what we're allowing now, and maybe not have them electronic, but at least have some electric component. Because when I asked months ago, are these people allowed to have one of those little red neon open signs? They were told, no, you can't have those. And later they were told, oh, of course you can, really. So there's all kinds of weird restrictions here that need to be lifted so that these people can do business properly and create jobs and reap some of the millions and millions of investment that they've put into Ward 3 in our town at our request. I remind you, we asked them to do this. We want them to do it. We have to support them in making those businesses supportable, sustainable, and competitive. So as Mr. Gorski said, I agree with that. So if administration would like to start preparing some ways that we can ease these draconian restrictions, I think that would be the best course forward. Without night signs, doesn't have to be electronically blazing, just a little bit more.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bowman, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Just a couple comments. When we have special meetings like this, you either have one side that's totally opposed and the other one's totally for. So you've got two diverse points of view. And usually there's some kind of a common ground, which Councillor Van der Dolen was kind of alluding to in his statements just previous. I would or recommend, or we realize that council or the administration has already put quite a bit of time into this. So I would certainly like to move the number 3 direction that we could give to them, and that's to for them to take some of the comments that they've received tonight and come back with a report at our next meeting or as soon as possible with some maybe further direction that would give us some common ground that we could move towards, and it won't appease everybody, but it may come to an agreement that is much more palatable for everybody and still produce the desired result. So I'd make that motion. If I could have a seconder, I'd appreciate it.
Councillor Van Dolen seconds it. All in favor? Discussion, pardon me, discussion, go ahead, Councillor Bjorkman. Go ahead, discussion, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since it's time to go on record with where we're at, I'll go right back to the first meeting that happened on January 20th, because that's when this started getting kicked around of this year. And at that meeting, it was stated that this is an issue that was generated by one proponent. We have a bylaw. The bylaw has been working for everybody else. One proponent came forward to change things, and a complete review was done. At that time, I was not in favor of it. So I'm going to stick with, I'm in favor of the bylaw as is. It's a bylaw that has worked. Nobody else has come forward. There have been no other requests to change anything, to update it. So it goes back to, we keep the bylaw we have, and we have site-specific recommendations. Somebody wants to come to us, a site-specific aim, then we address it site-specific. But as far as that goes, there's been no other action. There's nobody else on County Road 50 in businesses, or whether they're wineries, restaurants, gift shops, rentals, B&Bs. No one has come forward to support this. So there's no reason for us to move any further with it. That would be my consideration. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else want to speak on the motion? So we had a mover and a seconder. All in favor of that motion? Opposed? Motion fails. Yeah, we can adjourn, or no, go ahead, Councillor Bjorkman, go ahead.
So administration still needs recommendation from us and direction. So I will move that we direct administration that we leave our bylaw the way it is, and anybody who wants to apply to it can apply for site-specific issues.
Seconder, Councillor Verbeek. All in favor of that motion?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question to the motion, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I believe Crew came to us and applied for a site-specific recommendation, and that is what led us to do this. So just thinking like we're chasing our tail. I will be supporting the motion, but that's how we got here, right? They wanted site-specific. So now we're telling them to come back for site-specific. I will be supporting them.
All in favor of the motion? Oh, it's carried. Motion carries. Thank you, Council. I guess we can go right into adjournment. Need a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Malash and Councillor Verbeek, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Council. That's a very tough decision. Very tough. So thank you for your input.